that's one thing I've had to really surrender to, is just a deep trust and just a deep knowing that everything's going to be okay, because it has been, no matter which way. It might not been like the life that I really, was like, thought this was going to ever be, but having just like this deep trust and knowing, and just like holding on for dear life and let's go, has got me to where I am today, of just like falling, that was one thing. The morning of my daughter's surgery back in May, I was all by myself. Of course, my husband's not here. This is the first surgery that I've ever, like, quote unquote, been alone, and I was just scared. I was just like, oh my gosh. And it just came to me. It was just like, you have got to fall into just deep trust. You just need to fall into deep trust right now. It's not going to make sense, but you just need to. And I was just like, okay, all right.
Welcome to the Deeper Awareness Podcast, where we delve into the depths of our inner selves, uncovering authenticity and transformation. Join us for enlightening conversations on breathwork, self-discovery, and the profound journey within. I'm your host, Josh Perry, joined by the delightful Hannah Oxley. Let's begin.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Deeper Awareness Podcast. This is Hannah. And I first today want to invite you to just a couple minutes of breathing. I don't know when you are listening to this episode, but Christmas just passed this week and we're on to New Year's celebration. So this time can be all of the emotions all wrapped into one. And I want to remind you that you can hold both joy and grief. You can be just grieving when everyone is in all these joyful spirits, then that's okay. You can set your boundaries. You can say no. You can stay home. You can do what needs to be done for you. This is your life. You are in charge of you. There's so many things in life that we can't control, but we can control our breath. We can control our own selves and how we show up. So no matter what and how this holiday season went for you, I just want to invite you to through a few breaths with me. So we'll start by just taking a nice deep breath in through your nose. Big sigh out. I invite you to do a few more. And just keep those deep breaths going, creating a slow, soft pace for yourself. And I just invite you to feel your heart turn inward, noticing what your body is holding. And just breathe softness into your body. Breathing out anything that's holding you back. Breathing out any entanglements in your body during these holidays. It's so easy to let our energy get tangled up in other people, in all of the to-do lists. And other people's energy gets tangled up in us too. So just a few more breaths here. Picturing your energy coming in to you, and what's not yours, letting it leave. One more. Beautiful job. I hope you enjoyed just a minute of breath work with me. And now I want you to get all cozy, grab some tissues, because this interview is a roller coaster of emotions. And the word that comes to mind with Katie, our guest today, is resilience. She has been through it all. And it's just all of the stories that we hear, that common thread of finding just life lessons and wisdom through the grief process. It's beautiful, as sad and as heartbreaking as some of these stories can be, especially Katie's. There's something so beautiful in what you get out of these experiences, the love that comes out of these experiences. So without ruining the story or anything, just again, grab your tissues and enjoy this story from Katie as she shares just what life has thrown at her. And yeah, that's all I have. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and enjoy.
Well, I am Katie Garcia. I live in Harriman, Utah, which is about 40 minutes outside Salt Lake. And I'm a mom of 3. My oldest is a boy, he's 16. And then my daughters are 13 and 11. So that in itself just consumes me, just kids. And I always say Breathwork found me, because it did. It found me in Sedona in October of 21. And the very first time I did it, it like blew my socks off, like legitimately blew my socks off. I was like, can we swear on this? I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this was the most powerful thing I have ever witnessed in my entire life. And I was just like, I almost thought, I was like, did they give me something? Did I like do, you know what I mean? Because I'm telling you what, it was the most powerful thing that ever hit my system. And from that time forward, when I got home, I was like, I have no idea what this is. I've never even heard of it. Anyone I've ever asked, they're like, Breathwork, I have no idea. Nope, never heard of it. And I was just like, okay. But I just knew like that is like where I needed to go. And I jumped online, and the first thing that popped up was Taz. And I'm like, I don't know what the freak I'm doing, but I'm signing up. I signed up. I did it one time. And I was like, I'm ready. I'm like, all in, let's freaking go, And there I went. And so we started our cohort like November 3rd or 4th or something like that. So it was only like a few weeks after that I did it. And it was just like, bam. It was just like this fast track of like, I had no idea what I was even getting myself into. Like, but it, and so that is where like it, started as for, my breathwork journey. But I would say, I unfortunately have had a lot of traumatic experiences in my life and a lot of hardships. And so I don't want to like go through every single one of them, but my most pivotal moments in my life and where I can kind of pinpoint changes and when things had happened. One of the very first ones, as for my adult life, it was in July of 2016. And my 5-year-old daughter was diagnosed with 7 malformations in her brain. They were brain tumors, AKA brain tumors. And as you can imagine, from that time forward, my whole life changed from that moment forward. Fast forward a year later, we had to move out to Arizona for her first brain surgery, because at that time, even just back in 2017, here in Salt Lake, one of the biggest ones is Primary Children's. And even at that time, their neurosurgery had no idea. Like, they wouldn't even touch her. They were just like, nope, we are not experienced. Like, we don't know, we don't know anything about these. And so they're called cavernous malformations, angiomas, and they're technically brain bleeds in her brain. And she had 7 of them. And one of her biggest ones at that time, I think that was like 7 centimeters. So it was probably about maybe like that big. But then she had a lot of satellite ones all around it that like came from like the mother one, and it was all on her right temporal side. And so then July of 2017, we moved our whole lives, changed our whole lives, moved out to Phoenix, Arizona. We were told that it was going to be at least a year until they would operate, until they would even touch her. We were there 3 weeks, just barely still moving in. And the neurosurgeons are like, nope, now, like next week. And I'm just like, wait, what? Okay, here we go. Here we go. So they successfully removed 4 of them. And we were inpatient for 4 days. That's it. We were inpatient for 4 days. She was home. Like, when I tell you that kids are so resilient, I've like seen it I've seen it in my own eyes. Like they just, the way that they heal and the way that they are just, they take on things, it's like, oh my gosh, like you would never even imagine like how quick that she jumped back, and how fast, like how amazing she'd been in the hospital. And after 4 days they released us, and we only stayed in Arizona for a few months because Utah's home and we wanted to be back home, so we moved back home. So that was kind of the beginning of things. Now the most life-changing events in my life really began in 2019, and when I tell you that was the fucking hardest year of my life, it was the hardest year of my life. Starting with, in February, I lost my father that year. He had a massive stroke, and then my son, who is 16 now, he was 12 at the time. Now in May of 2019, he had the exact same thing as my daughter. So these things are hereditary. They run on my husband's side of the family. And my son then had a massive brain hemorrhage in his left temporal lobe, and he was hemorrhaging. We got him right in, and they took him straight into emergency surgery because he was blood clotting all through his brain and hemorrhaging, and we didn't know that he had him either. And so we were like, what? Like, how, and even the doctors have told us, like, the chances that like 2 out of 3 of your kids have these things, like, what? Like, this is insane. And of course, like I said, again, my other child just bounced right back. We were inpatient for 7 days, did incredible. And his was a little bit more, he was a lot older than my daughter. And so, and he actually had a hemorrhage. And so there was a lot of, other things that went on during that surgery, but still we were only in the hospital for 7 days, and we were already back home. We got actually home on his birthday. He actually just turned 12. So the day that they released him, we were able to come home, and he was so excited. And he did so amazing. So because of that, we're like, well, our pediatrician was like, well, we need to send your other daughter in because we need to make sure she doesn't have them. So they sent her in for an MRI. And so this is now July of 2019. And they're like, awesome, she doesn't have it. However, she has these 2 other things. We're like, what? Like, it's just so hard to wrap your head around this shit. You're just like it's still, even now, I'm like, what? Like, this is just insane, right? So they then tell us that my daughter doesn't have them. However, she has 2 other things. She has, so she then goes in. So then my baby goes in for brain surgery, and her brain surgery was 2 different things. They call it cranial stenosis, which her brain closes prematurely. And so it doesn't give it enough room to grow. And so then it's just like the brain's pushing on, and then there's just nothing. And so usually they catch this before they're even a year old. But there was no signs. That was the thing. There was no signs that she had ever had, that she wasn't, because like usually their skulls will go like football shape, and they'll do certain things that tell us, but she didn't show any signs. And she at this time was 6. She was 6 when this was all going down. So she had cranial stenosis, and then she had what is called the QRE. It's where her brain stem connects up to her brain, and it's like a kinked hose. So the spinal fluid can't get up all the way into her brain, and so it's just like this kink, and it makes her really dizzy. And that was like the only signs that she ever showed, is that she was like really dizzy, and her like equilibrium was always off. But it's just these, so anyway, so she then goes in for her brain surgery. And with hers, it was one and done thing. They did both things. They did the cranial stenosis, and then they did the QRE. And she was in there for about a week as well. Like I said, hers was completely different from my other children's. And so, again, my third child just bounces right back. Like, so by this time, you know, we have the hospital set down. Like we know how things are going. You know, we know the ins and outs of living at the hospital, unfortunately. And, you know, and so by that time, my husband, so my husband and I at that time, we were married for 15 years. He was going through a lot of like very deep depression. He he really felt that like two of my children's health issues was all his fault because it came from his side of the family. Because my husband had them, but his are really small and they didn't do anything. Because like they can lay dormant in your brain your whole life and a lot of people won't even know it. But the fact that two of my kids is just decided to just grow, and then they grow really fast. That's the thing, is they just grow so fast. And my daughters we caught in time, but my sons we didn't. And then that's what happens is they hemorrhage or they could stroke or they, of course they can die. You know, there's all these things. And so my husband was going through a lot of depression at that time. Now fast forward, I lost my sister-in-law. 2 months after that, we lost her in October of 2019. And then the final death of that year was my husband's death. He died on December 21st of 2019. And he killed himself. He shot himself in the heart. We were, like I said, we were together 17 years, married 15 of those years. And so as you can imagine, you know, that whole year was just a fucking shit show. It was just traumas after death, after just so much heartache. And then 2020 happened. And actually 2020 was like one of the best years of our life, you know, and it was like the hardest year for everybody, you know, but it was just like, man, we just got through 2019, you know, and, you know, here comes 2020, it's all lockdown. And so actually 2020 was one of the best years for us because we could all be together and my kids were home from school and we could really like mourn and grieve together and, you know, really go through all the process of grief, you know. And so now like I said, it'll be 4 years in December that I have lost my husband. And you know, there were so many pivotal moments in my life where, like I said, that I can pinpoint of where just life has completely changed and, you know, completely taken over. And that is when Breathwork had found me in Sedona in, you know, October of 21. And it forever changed my life. Like it forever, I really, at that moment, I was like, holy crap, like I have the power. Like, you know, and I never saw it that way. I always thought that, you know, like I didn't know that I could control everything. I didn't know that I could control my emotions. And I, you know, like I thought everything was outside of my body. I didn't realize everything was within, like everything is here. There's nothing outside that can fix it. And once I had really realized those moments of like, it is all in here and is something internal that I have to work through. And, you know, and it was completely life-changing at that moment when I realized that I had the power, you know, and that I can do it. And, you know, so, and then one last thing that I'll share is, this year has been another very, very hard year for us, because again, with my kids' health, in January, we found another, mass in my daughter's head. It was way bigger. It was 14.9 centimeters. It's like a large orange, like this big. The sucker was big. They were trying to shrink it to try to avoid surgery. Earlier this year, we couldn't. So then she went into surgery in May. So with all the surgeries, we had never been faced with what happened to her. She lost 70% function on her left side. So where the mass was out on her right side, it hit a majority of her motor functions that go to her left side. And so when they took the mass out, it messed with the motor functions. So during the surgery, it was almost an 8-hour surgery. They found out that this had happened and they decided to pull it. They couldn't get the rest of the mass and they pulled out of the surgery because they didn't know like how severe everything was. And so once she, we didn't really know for about a week. And we were there for 2 months at Primary Children's. And so at that time, that is where she lost over 70% motor functions on her left side. So she couldn't walk. She could barely even talk. She had to learn to eat again. She had to learn to everything again, learn to walk again. She can now walk, which is fucking amazing. She can't quite use her left arm yet. Her hand is like this almost all the time. Like it's really, really stiff. And so like I have to like do her elbow, and it kind of like helps release her hand, but she can't like move her fingers or anything like that yet. So we do a lot of intensive rehab. That's why we're at Primaries. We lived there for 2 months, legitimately 2 months in the hospital over the summer. We were there all summer long. I slept on a mattress that was like legit this thick. But I couldn't leave my baby, and so I was there. I slept there every night in the hospital with her, and thank goodness for my family and everyone that just rallied around us, because they just helped take care of my kids and helped take care of my dog and our home and everything like that, and so since we've been home since August. She does a lot of like outpatient rehab at Primaries, and it's coming along, but it's very slow and it's really frustrating. She's now 13, so she's a teenager and wants to do teenager things, and it's hard when she has these things now where she can't just go run on her scooter anymore. Now I think she could, but it's our life's completely changed once again back in May. Completely changed. We can't do anything the same, like nothing. We can't do this, anything the same because of, unfortunately, I don't know what to call them. The functions that were taken from her. And, she needs help with a lot of things. She still needs help with showering and, stuff like that. And so, yeah. So back to breath work. Holy shit. I was like, I hold on to that baby with all my heart, because as you can imagine, like all of the heartache that has hit our family over the years. And I would say that was been my number one modality just in the hospital this past time. Like so many times I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had this. I wish I had this with their previous surgeries. It would have helped so much, because you know what, honestly, I didn't cope with it the right ways. I was drinking, not, the way that I should have been. I was dealing with all of these emotions and all these feelings that I didn't want to feel, because it's so painful. Like feeling sometimes is so hard, but I've also realized, instead of avoiding and pushing them down or suppressing them is the worst thing that you can do. It comes out and it manifests in other ways, in ways that you can't even imagine, in ways you're just like, what the heck? Why did I do that? I have no idea why I did that. And it's like, well, no wonder you did that, because you've been suppressing this for how long? You haven't been dealing with these feelings, and you've been pushing away these feelings and pushing them down, and that is what breath work has done for me, to actually help me actually feel and feel safe in my body to feel, so then I can then release it. And before you jumped on, Josh and I were just talking about of just like how, just like different things of breath work, of releasing it out of your body. You're just like, oh my gosh. And like how, like, there's been so many times I've gotten up from a session and I'm like, I'm a different person, because it was released out of my body, or it was, and so, yeah. That's my story. So,
it must be interesting looking back on going through all this medical stuff without breath work, and now going through it with it. So you're seeing that huge difference.
Such a huge difference. Absolutely. Yes, it is. Like I can scream it from the rooftops when it comes to breath work, and like what it has even done for me, even my own children, my own children see that. And that's one thing that I had this, it it was back in 21, and it was before I found Breathwork. I just remember, I'll never forget, that was one of those pivotal moments to my life where I was sitting there in my house, and it was on March 9th. And I was just like, you know what, Katie, you have to do this sober. You have to do all of this sober. You're not going to mask it. You're not going to take a pill. You're not going to drown with alcohol. You're not going to go shopping. You're not going to stuff your face. Like I'm all of these things. I'm like, you are going to do this sober, and you're going to feel it. Because I had really connected that once I actually feel it, and I can feel through those emotions, and I can release them, and I don't have to carry them anymore. But it took me a long time to actually realize that, because you're carrying so much, and you don't realize how much you're carrying until you actually like release it and let it go. And you're like, holy shit, I weigh like 50 pounds lighter, and I don't feel that heaviness on my back or my head or, whatever. And so, again, that was one of my pivotal moments, back in 21, where I'm like, you are doing this sober, and you're going to feel it, and it's going to be fucking hard, but you're going to do it, and it's going to be okay. And you have a team around you, and we're going to do this. And from that time forward, I dropped the ball. I dropped everything. I have been sober since, and it has been the best decision of my life to do that. And then fast forward, I found Breathwork, at the end of that year. And it just like, it's, when you really decide that you're just like, enough's enough. And when you really decide like we're doing this, like it's amazing what comes into your space. It's amazing the healing and the work that comes through when you really are like, this is what we're doing. And I'm not, I'm not negotiating anymore. I'm not going to mask these feelings anymore. I'm not going to hide, and I'm not going to do these things. Like, I'm fucking here for it, and let's go. And by doing that and showing my kids that I can do that, like when I heal, I see my kids heal. And that is like one of the most powerful things. And as I'm healing, I realize the people around me are seeing that, and they're like, wow, 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 and then that's what drives it even more, as I have like, really entered into this, and it's been a few years now, that I've been doing it, and I'm going to be doing it for probably the rest of my life, when it comes to healing and inner work and working on myself and stuff, but I know that I have been faced these experiences because I can help other people. And I've gone through some very deep, deep heartaches in my life that I would never wish on my own enemies, and because of that, I know that, these were for me, and these were for my children, and we can be that light for other people, and we can be that hope for other people who are going through some really hard, deep heartaches in their life, not thinking that they can never come out, or there's no way out, or anything like that, and so it's been really hard, but this year definitely has, despite everything that's gone on with my daughter, it has actually been a very, incredible year, despite everything. Like, it's amazing what miracles and what things come into your space, when you choose to be more positive about it, and not the, victimhoods and all of that, because, it's so easy to play, the poor me and all of that stuff. It's, it's so easy. But I've never been that type of person as for that. And I just keep going. I'm just like, people have asked me sometimes, how do you keep going? And I'm like, how do you not keep going? Like, that's not even an option. That is not an option for me, just to like surrender and I give up. I'm done. I can't do this. Like, that's never been an option for me, ever, ever, ever. And I'm just like, how do you not? You have to keep going. You have to keep pushing and working through the heartaches. And I every day I have to really work on myself every day, because our minds are very powerful, and scarcity and the unknown is debilitating sometimes. I'll be honest with you. Some mornings I'm like, oh my gosh, like just fearing the unknown. And I finally got to a point over the summer. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done fearing the unknown. I'm done fearing and living in scarcity and waking up just scared out of my mind. I'm like, I'm done living that way. That's miserable. Like, I can't live that way. Like, I deserve to be happy and wake up happy every morning. And that's my goal. Some days is harder than others, because it's, oh, man, it's the fear. I think the fear will always be there, but I have made a very conscious decision every morning to wake up and not be in scarcity and not live in those lower vibrations, because it's miserable. I've been there many times, and I've had very many nights of, very many nights, dark soul nights of where, I am just like pleading with, my universe, my God above, whatever you guys believe in, but I do believe there is in a higher being. And and through that has given me the courage and the strength to keep going and keep being that example to my kids. My kids deserve a happy mom, period. They deserve a happy mom. They deserve, to come home to a happy, beautiful space and a place where they want to come, and so that's what I do. I continue to show up the way that I need to, for my kids, and not just for that, for myself. I deserve it. I deserve to be happy, and I deserve to be in that space where, there's nothing but abundance and, beautifulness. So, yeah. Breathe that one out.
That's such a beautiful message. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes,
I think
you.
it's so, well, it's just says a lot about the power of intention. Like when you in 2021 were like, I have to do this sober, I have to do this, and just claiming that in itself, that intention of just I have to do this, let go, made space for breathwork to come in and for other gifts to come in. And so that breathwork just did find you that way, because you were able to let go of the other nonsense that wasn't helping you feel your emotions, but you cleared that out and brought in what was really going to help you in the long run. So that's so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just love the whole, I can talk about scarcity and abundance forever. And I think that's such an important theme for people, just the whole population in general, to realize, because I see so many people living in scarcity and in fear. And that's one thing I love about breathwork, is that it in a couple minutes can remind you how you're not like, there is, just look around, there's abundance, like all the leaves that I have in my yard that I need to pick up. Abundance of leaves.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I'm gonna come over.
Frigging party.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you for naming that, because that is important.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a couple months ago too, where it was one of those things again where I woke up and I was like, okay, damn it, I'm done. I'm done waking up with just pure chaos and scarcity in my brain. Like, I'm not doing this no more. Not happening. And as I have, I really believe deeply in Joe Dispenza's work in rewiring our brains. And if you have ever looked into that, or if you haven't, I really highly recommend it. But we do, especially in the trauma that I have experienced and been through, of course, that's going to be the first thing that's going to hit me, is scarcity, just pure, because I have been through, the worst case scenario. And so it's like, I have every reason to like that on the forefront, but I'm like, but I am not going to live that way either, and it was one morning again where I'm just like, okay, damn it, I'm done waking up like this. I'm not doing it anymore. Let's go. Like, let's figure this out. And, and like breathe. And he does, it's actually one of his things on Joe Dispenza, is rewiring the brain. And you legitimately have to rewire your brain to, you have to find those different circuits in your brains, because like they say, the same thoughts were the same thoughts from yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before, and stopping that and having that awareness of what is coming into your space and stopping those thought patterns and then rewiring it to a different direction. And once I brought awareness to that and realized I'm going to do this every morning. This is what we're doing every morning with breath work, with meditation. We are doing this as well. And I added it to my morning routine of this is what we're doing. And the minute these thoughts start creeping in, the minute scarcity and what ifs and money and everything that's so stressful, I've had to legitimately, have had to really like reteach myself and relearn on things that I've learned my whole life, and like this is not working for me anymore, and learning to rewire those thought processes and those patterns that are so deep in us, not even realizing we do those patterns sometimes, but once we have awareness of it, man, we can change so fast. We can change quickly. So yeah.
And just a reminder to our listeners too, like it takes it's a constant work. Like that scarcity slips in as strong-minded as you think you have rewired. Like I'm sure it still slips into Joseph's mind too. Like it just comes in. So it's a constant reminder to do any sort of mindfulness practice, especially breath, but anything that helps just get out of that ego mind.
Yeah, there's been many times where it's hit me and I'm like, oh man, how long have I been sitting about this? I've been thinking about this for like 10 minutes, so sometimes it takes some time to like realize you're like, oh shoot, I'm doing that again. Cause I've done that so many times, especially like, cause I always call it, I call it my music therapy drives. Cause I love that more than anything. I go in the car, I'm all by myself and I just listen to music. I drive through the canyons. I just get out. And so I call it my music therapy drives. And there's been so many times where I'm like, how long have I been sitting about thinking about this? 10 minutes now, and sometimes you get so stuck in those thought patterns and it takes a lot of work to like realize that. And, sometimes it's part of the process of healing too. We go through different seasons, and I'm a whole different person than I was even 6 months ago. And I realize those same thoughts and those same scarcities are still going to pop up, but I'm a different person now. And I have different things that I've learned that I can now, bring in and incorporate into my life. And, so those same, like I said, those same things that are going to pop up, but they're going to pop up in different seasons of your life, and you're a different person and you have different tools that you can learn to cope with and learn to change it, because we can all change. Yep.
But I like how you said it's about the awareness first.
Yeah.
That's the first step to change.
Yep. Very first, most painful thing too. We're like, oh man. Like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
I'm curious about your morning routine.
Yeah.
If you'd be willing to share.
I would love to share. So as a mother, like I have teenage kids now. And so they get up pretty early now for school and stuff. And so I've had to change things quite a bit, because I honestly get up early. I get up earlier before them because I really feel like sometimes I can't do a full hour, but I commit to at least 30 to 45 minutes, and the first thing, like before, so I'm really big into dream work and like writing my dreams down and stuff. And I've learned a lot of different techniques, even before you even get out of your bed. And so I usually, even before like I get out of my bed, I will try to remember about a dream and I will journal about it, or I will do like a video journal too, and just like type it into it, or, talking into it. And I really sit with that. And especially if it's a really good dream, because I feel like dreams really talk to us and we can work a lot of our karma through our dreams. And so if I have a very deep dream, like a few days ago, I had like excruciating, like painful dream, like just so hard. And I knew that I needed to work on that right then and there before I even got out of bed, because I knew it was going to take over my day. And so I laid there, and right when I woke up, and I just breathed through it. So that's usually right the first thing. So I'll either write something down, I'll dream journal, or I'll breathe through it, so I can really work through that dream or whatever it might be. But that's one of the first things I do. And I'll do breath work to wake me up, to like get me energized. So I'll usually do like the triactive one, and just a little bit faster, so it helps like wake me up a little bit more, because that one actually wakes me up. Some people actually have heard that it kind of makes them tired, but I'm like, oh, it energizes me.
Question.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you said with the dream, you said breathe through it. Can you? Yeah.
So basically, like, at least for me, I have to, if it's like like the dream that I had a few days ago, that was just like excruciating painful. Like, I just like, oh my gosh. I knew that if I didn't sit with it, and if I didn't breathe through it, so like I'll consciously breathe, just like and it's usually like a halo active one, that's just a deep conscious breathing, and I'll breathe through it. And sometimes I'll have to kind of like replay the dream in my head, or if I got it out on paper, if I got it out through voice, I breathe through the whole thing. And for me, the way that I see it, that's the way that I release it as well, is like really getting it out of my body and getting out of my thoughts. Like if it's a really hard one, to do. So yeah, like it's really just almost just a conscious breathing. That's all I do, is just bringing awareness to my breath as I am, writing through or remembering through the dream. And for me, it really, like, once it's actually out, then a lot of times I don't even really revisit it again or really think of it. Like I feel it actually like coming out of my body when I can just like release it through my breath. Yeah. But then, the rest of my morning routine, usually, not every morning, but I would say, maybe 3 or 4 times out of the week, I love my coffee. So I'll go downstairs, I will make some coffee. I actually found this really good oat milk coffee, or oat milk stuff that I put in my coffee. I'm like, game changer. It's at Costco, by the way, if you guys want some. But so amazing. My mom just dropped it at my doorstep the other day, because I was telling her about, I'm like, I love dairy. I love it. But my body's like, get out of here. So every time, and I always love creamer, and it always just only needs to be a little drop. And every time I'm like, why did you do that? Why? But anyway, so I got this yummy oat milk and I've been like loving it. So I'm like, yes, and then I always, so I am actually in the middle of writing a book, and I have realized that I am most clear first thing in the morning, like my thoughts as we're, going from like, REM and beta to our normal, like that is where I am so clear. And so once I do those few things, then I will sit, and I usually set a timer, because it's so easy to get lost into writing, or sometimes I'm writing for 2 minutes and I'm like, what? Like I still, like I've only been writing for 2, so sometimes it's hard for me to like get into, either I'm in it full force and I'm just like writing and I lose track of time, or I'm like, I can't find words and I'm just like, oh, like trying to find something to say. So I always set a timer for myself too. And by writing and journaling or anything like that, that has actually really brought in honesty and safety into my body, because I've never realized how scared I used to be to write, because I was always so scared of someone like reading it, or, oh no, what if they hear about my real feelings? And I actually was talking to a girlfriend last night about this. I'm like, I still have this thing around it, and I can't figure it out. Like, and I can't think of anything in this lifetime that like I was ever, got in trouble for someone reading something of mine. So I don't know where it stems from, but I have this like this thing of like, oh no, what if they might know my real feelings? And that's really hard for me to like really get it out. And so it's actually, I've had to create a practice out of it, like a clear practice of like getting your true feelings out. And even sometimes getting those true, like whatever's coming through, like I'm like, you write it in, no matter how weird it might sound, no matter what, like just let it come through, and don't be judging yourself, and don't be like, why are you, like all the things that come up around that, at least for me as a writer, like that was weird, like what the heck, type thing, and just letting it come through. And I'm like, if you have to burn it after, if you want to, rip it up and throw it in the garden, like down the whatever you have to do. But that is where I have actually found like pure honesty for myself of like what is really coming up for me, and I get it first thing out in the morning, because that is the first thing that hits when I wake up, is just like that pure scarcity. But then if I can get it out on paper or vocalize it or say, whatever way, then bam. And then movement in any type of way, moving your body, doing yoga, going up and down the stairs, doing some weights, just moving my body. And I usually don't go anywhere. It's all done, here at my house, or I'll go outside or whatever. There's nothing more than I love is sitting outside and watching the sunrise. I love that. My kids even make fun of me because the other day it was so cold outside, and I even brought the heater because I wanted to be outside so bad. I brought the heater out, and my kids are like, you were so ridiculous. I had a hat on, but I just wanted to be outside, but it was so cold. And so, and then fresh air, getting outside, and connecting to nature. And then by doing those simple to me, at least those simple things, it then creates the foundation for my whole day, whatever is going to come that day for me. If I have those, if I have those core foundations in that morning, it just like everything else, it's like, it doesn't matter what hits us that day, we're going to be able to take it on and do what we have to do. And I was even really proud of myself, even like living at the hospital for 2 months. Like I stuck to that routine too. I was like so faithful on like getting up and doing that and doing these steps, because it, like I said, it's what gives me that foundation, that stability in the morning to just like, let's go, let's freaking go. Because then after that, it's just like, once the kids are up and it's now kids and school and get them out the door and then work, and it's like you lose track and you don't even have time for yourself anymore. And it's just like freaking just go. And then you don't even have time to, like, the minute you like finally like decompress in the evening time, usually by that time I am so tired. The only thing I force myself is to read. I'm like, you are reading at least 5 to 10 pages tonight. And I'll sit there and I'll read in my book, and I'll read before bed. But, by the evening and trying to get those things in is way harder for me, because by that time I'm so spent, I'm so exhausted. I'm just like, I'm ready for bed. And so as long as I do those practices in the morning, and move my body in some way, yeah, I'm ready to roll. So, yeah.
Very inspiring.
Thank you.
What's your book about?
Ooh, so let me tell you, for one thing, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing, but what my mentors have told me, they're just, Katie, just write. And so, like, there's been so many times where I have been inspired to whatever. And I'm like, this is a terrible time. I can't write this down. It's like, yeah, you're going to pull over and you're writing this down. Okay. Pulling over to the side of the road and writing shit down, or whatever. But honestly, I really don't know. And I'm being truthful with you. I really honestly don't really know. Because everything that's been coming through is just my life experiences and what I have been through, and the things what has got me through these hard times. And yeah, so like that is really like that. So I honestly, I don't even know. I was actually thinking about that the other day. I was like, man, what is this even going to be about? And it was like my higher self's like, it doesn't matter, just keep writing. So I'm like, I don't know, like I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's just like it, and so I keep being told that it's going to be pieced together and it's going to come together. So I don't know if it's going to be like just like like a just a life story about me, or if it's actually going to be just like principles of whatever. I don't know. I'll be probably just as surprised as you guys.
Well, from interacting with you, your life story is inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, and it sound like, I get that you don't know what you're doing, and it sounds like it's like learning to ride a bike. And it's just like, and then all of a sudden you're doing it. It sounds like you're doing it. It's just
Yeah.
you've never done it before, so you have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah. I'm like,
But
I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea, because yeah.
and you called yourself a writer, which I think is really big. You owned that you were like, I'm a writer.
I like that. Okay.
You are it.
I guess I am. I know. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I feel like that's everybody's story. Like anybody who has written a top-selling book or a best, rated podcast. Like we just started doing nothing. We have, we have listeners, and I'm always like, oh my God, I can't believe like what we wanted to create, people are listening to. So I think that's just it. It's just doing it, putting it into action, and just trusting in that divine timing that brought breathwork to you, brought all of the lessons that you learned along this tough and roller coaster way. It's all the divine timing of it. So I have full faith that you're just going to keep writing it, and all of a sudden like the title's going to come to you, and it's just going to be perfect.
Yeah, that's so true. I know, because I've been so fixated on that. Like, what is this even about? What are you even doing? You don't even have a title yet. Like, all the things. And it's just like, calm yourself. It's coming. And I'm just like, okay. Like, and so I just trust it, like that's one thing I've had to really surrender to, is just a deep trust and just a deep knowing that everything's going to be okay. Because it has been, no matter which way. It might not been like the life that I really, is like, thought this was gonna ever be, but having just like this deep trust and knowing, and just like holding on for dear life and let's go, has got me to where I am today, of just like falling, that was one thing. The morning of my daughter's surgery back in May, I was all by myself. Of course my husband's not here. This is the first surgery that I've ever, like, quote unquote, been alone, and I was just scared. I was just like, oh my gosh. And it just came to me. It was just like, you have got to fall into just deep trust. You just need to fall into deep trust right now. It's not going to make sense, but you just need to. And I was just like, okay, all right. And this was before everything that happened with my daughter, and now I understand, like there's nothing I can do, like this is all out of my hands. I have to trust in the doctors. I have to trust in what's being told to me. I just have to trust that everything's going to be okay. And, and it is, but it's scary sometimes to like completely surrender, like I thought I knew what surrender was. No, I had no idea what surrender was until now. I'm like, oh, this is what surrender means. Wow. Oh my gosh. Like, okay. So, yeah.
And you were taught that for a reason you might not know now, but to be able to hold breathwork sessions to guide people through surrender, because you now know it maybe better than anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And so tell us, so are you guiding breathwork sessions now, or what do you do? Or...
Yeah, you know what? I actually, where like the meat and potato is for me is the individual work. Like I love the one-on-one. So I love groups and I'll still do them, but I don't like advertise them or anything like that. People, will ask me here and there, like, I did a birthday party one and so like I'll do that, but I don't really advertise for, big groups. Where it is for me and where I feel the most is the one-on-one with people. And so I have a beautiful space here in my home, or I'll come to them to their home, or like sometimes they want to go out in nature. And so then we'll go somewhere, And so yeah, the one-on-one work for me is like where I really, enjoy it and where I can feel like I get the most out of it to help and to be there for others, Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys like? Do you guys like the individual work? Do you guys like the more group settings? Like, what do you guys like?
I like both.
Yeah.
I'm doing a little bit of both right now. I guess I wish I had more one-on-one clients. But I also crave, like I do these monthly workshops. I have weekly like integrative sessions. And I have one at the local senior center, and there's always filled to like the max is 15 people, and it's always 15 people. And
really?
they're so
good idea.
They're so sweet. I just do a simple halo active usually, sometimes tri-active. Sometimes I'll like a minute of the blow breath, but I don't want, because they all have like heart problems and stuff. And I don't want anybody getting all worked up. So we're just going to do nice and slow. And they love it. They absolutely love it. And so I love that. I just love that feeling of community. And then I have another, like at a yoga studio, I teach a weekly class, and I wish the numbers were a little bit better. But it's still nice. Like it's always perfect. Like even if it's just 2 people, it was the 2 people that were meant to be there, and we always have the absolute best time. So it's great. And then I try to do meditative sessions once a month, and it's the same thing. It's like 3 to 5 people, and I really want like a big, but it's still perfect in every way that it shows up. But I crave a little bit more community and then maybe a little bit more one-on-one. But right now, and it's beautiful. And when I look back on, because did I graduate from PAWS a year ago now, over a year ago? Yeah, it's been a year, and I'm in Massachusetts, and it sounds like in Utah you guys have a lot of people doing breathwork, even though it's still somewhat unknown. In Massachusetts, like nobody knows what it is, so I was so nervous to do it at first, but now that I have a name for myself, it's like blows my mind that people, like somebody came to my class, like who heard about me, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm the word around town, like.
Yes, that's so good.
It's fun seeing. That's all I want is like a breathwork community to be built over here on the cold East Coast.
So, Katie, I have a question. I've asked other people their relationship with grief.
Yeah.
And what maybe your understanding prior all of this to grief, because there's kind of, well, from my perspective, not having lost anyone, I didn't know I had grief inside my body just from life, just from living.
Yes.
And then just childhood, there was a lot just by being a little kid.
Yeah.
Without, big traumatic events, there was grief that I processed through in my journey. And so could you talk to us about grief and just your relationship now?
I would love to. Thank you for asking that question. Grief, man. Grief is very hard, of course. I have always described it as it comes off in layers, like an onion. The minute that you think, because there's been many pivotal times, since it, and grief isn't, so different. Depends who, what connections you have with that person. Like I have this grief with my own father that I lost that same year in 2019. And then the grief with my husband, of course. And then the grief with my sister-in-law that we lost her in 2019 as well. And then I have actually taken on her kids too. And so like I always have her kid, so they have 3 kids, my brother-in-law, and, and so I've taken over, those kids they live at my house half the time too, since we lost her. And so it's so different, processing the grief, let's say, for example, as for my father. And well, I would say even with my husband, there is, and I can say really with all of them, there's first I always say like the first year is just like, you're just like on autopilot and you're just getting through the holidays, like, just like, the second year, you're not as numb anymore and you're really starting to feel, and you're not as scared to feel. You're still kind of scared, but you're not as scared to feel. But you're still like, it's like, it almost reminds me of like when your leg or your hand is numb and it's starting to like finally come back alive and you're starting to like feel it. And you're just like, oh, that's how it feels. Oh my gosh, like that, and so year 2 was just like, whoa, like the feelings of, I can't say, well, and maybe, we block the first year of those because it's shock, it's denial. It's like you are waking up and you're just like, is this dream? Are they still here? It's like there's not enough full acceptance yet that first year. So that's why I say first year is just kind of like autopilot. You're just getting through the holidays and you're just like, it's almost like your head's down and you're just going. You're just like, let's just go get through this, Year 2, like I said, you're waking up a little bit more and you're actually allowing yourself to actually feel it. And there is a lot more acceptance, and there's a lot more but then there's also a lot more anger. I think there's that anger really sets in of just like, why? Or you're missing out on this, or if you only did this, or and so you're working through that. Year 2, like anger I was like in the thick of it, of anger, like so much anger and hurt, when I can really feel actually through it and accept it of what's happening. Year 3, which was this year, definitely the easiest so far as for accepting through it. And but as I described before, like it comes off in layers, and we're always changing. Like I said, I wasn't the same person 6 months ago, and these same feelings are now coming up, but now I can cope with it way better with, because of A, B, and C. And so I had this thought, and I was talking to one of my coaches, and I said to him, like, how do you just like move on? Like, how do you just move on? Like, there's things that are still like so painful. They're still like, you can still feel it like holding you on, And he's like, you're already doing it, Katie. And I'm like, what? He's like, you're already doing it. I'm like, I am. Yeah, you are. You just don't realize it, And I'm like, oh, it doesn't feel like I am, And he also described to me too he's just like, and I'm like, why does it keep coming up for me? Like, why does this keep coming up for me? Like, I thought I got over this part, with like, the grief of my father. I thought I got over this part with, my husband, and, I thought I got over this with whatever. He's just like, cause you're a different person. You're going to be when those things come up, you're a different person. And so it's going to come up, and it's going to come up to your space. And I'm like, oh, and so there's a lot of like realizations, like, we were talking about like awareness, like when it comes back into my space, cause let's be real, like these, grief is in my everyday life. It is in my everyday life, and the way at least for me, when I become aware of when grief first hits me, when I realize the grief has hit me, I'm first angry. I'm just like, oh, why are you freaking gone? Why aren't you here helping me with these kids? Why aren't you, just like, it's just this anger first. And then I'm like, oh, I see what I'm doing, and then I soften into it. I'm like, okay, all right, I know you're angry, Katie. And then I soften into, okay, why are you angry? Okay, because he's not here. And it's really hard with these kids. And yeah. And the more I soften into it, and then I can cry or I can get it out and I can release it. And I'm like, whew, okay, that's just what needed to come through today. Sometimes it's just a good cry after. Sometimes it's just a good scream or motherfucker, whatever like needs to come out. Like, it's like, oh, good, and, but yeah, like I've had that thought too, like, man, Katie, you should understand grief a lot more than you do now, right now. Because sometimes I'm just like, what? I don't understand. Like, and like, yeah, I don't know if I'm really answering much of your questions when it comes to grief. It's just, it comes off in layers. That's the thing, is it comes off in layers, and it's not going to come off until you're ready. And there are still some grief in there that I, like, cause I've met people, that were just like, man, it's been 10 years, like 10 years since this person's died. And just this thing came up for me. And that's one thing that I have learned with grief, is these things aren't going to come up, and we're not going to work through these parts of the grief until you're actually ready for it. And those things are going to come when you're ready, even though you might not feel it. Cause I'm like, I'm not ready for this. I don't want to feel this. Like, because then scarcity comes again. Cause you're just like, I don't want to feel this again. No, I don't want to go through this. Like, and it's scarcity. Like, oh, why do I have to feel this again? And, all the things. But if you, let yourself be angry though. Don't mask the anger. Do not mask the anger, because then it's going to come out in so many different ways. But when the anger comes, move your body, move it, go on a walk, start moving that energy, breathing through it. And then before you know it, you're going to soften into it, and you're going to cry, and you're going to do whatever your body needs to release it. Breathe it out. And then you just like, whoa, I feel so much better and so much lighter after all of that, and sometimes it can take a few days. I'll be real. Sometimes, like, there's, I can be like raging Cajun for 2 days, just like, like, just, and then finally it can be released out, but it's not going to be released until you feel it. And we have to feel it. We can't push it down. We can't mask it, and, but it is by nature, and it is pretty natural the first year that you're so numb and you're on autopilot and you're not accepting it, those are all very normal things, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to feel it, because we know once we feel it and we work through it, then you're just like, here we go, but I think feeling it is probably one of the scariest things. And so we run from it, and we mask it, and we drink, and we stay busy, and we do these things to like not feel it. But it's not going to get anyone anywhere, and the hardest thing about grief is each one deals with it so different. Each child deals with it so different. I have a son that wants his fucking dad. He's a teenage boy that wants his dad. He wants to go do his football with him and his wrestling with him, and he wants his dad. And then he has his 2 little angel daughters that spoiled, rotten them to death, and they want their dad. They want to be wined and dined, and their dad just spoiled them to death, and so each child deals with grief. So you not only have yourself, but then you have your children's grief, and they deal with it so differently as well. Like my one son, he's like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about the memories. I don't want to blah, 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 blah. And then there's my daughters that's all they want to do, is they just want to talk. And let's talk about this memory and this memory. And then my son's like, will you just stop? I don't want to hear this, And so I have to take each one of them and deal with it in different ways. I've had to sit my daughters down and say, hey, listen, this is hard for your brother right now. He has a hard time listening to all these memories. It's very painful for him. And so I'm not telling you can't talk about dad, because you need to talk about dad, and these great things are good, and, but there's certain, and so, we just eat, like I said, each person has a different way of how they deal with grief, and, my son's now worked through that part. And now he'll bring up his dad now, and he'll bring up certain things now. And, well, remember this time and this time. And I've loved it. I've loved when he will bring stuff down, up of his dad now. And he's worked through, some of those things, and then my daughter's side of things, they're a lot more emotional, and they're a lot more connected that way. And so they, in that aspect, especially my one daughter that had surgery this year, that's been kind of one of the hardest things, her dad hasn't been here, and I've seen the anger come up in her, which is good, because I've actually been waiting for that anger to like pop up and arise in her. And so it's just, I think with grief too, is you have to remove the ego. You have to remove your opinions about it and what that should be. And you just be, and you let that person talk however they need to talk through. You don't insert your opinions, because I'm like, I could have all sorts of opinions about your dad, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to let whatever arises in for you guys to then process through those, and whatever that has to be, as for talking or, whatever, and sometimes, like my one daughter, it's like, she doesn't even, any song that comes on that reminds her of her dad, immediate turn off, like turn off, But then I have another daughter, that's all she wants to do is listen to those same songs, and then my son, so you're just like, it's like this juggling act, and the holidays, of course, are hard. He killed himself 4 days before Christmas. And of course, that's always going to be hard, always, But I remember the first year after, I sat my kids down and I said to them, I said, this is hard. It just hit a year. I said, but I refuse to not look forward to the holidays, because we love the holidays. We love Christmas. We love all of this. And I will not allow us to just, it just be this mask over it, and this just be like this, like this terrible thing. Yeah, it was very terrible. It was very terrible what he did 4 days before Christmas, because it was a complete self-harm, and it was, like it was traumatic for everybody. But, I remember I remember seeing like this light in each one of their eyes. And I can't remember the exact words I said it, but I basically just said, like, we have loved the holidays, and we always have loved the holidays. And, it's going to be very hard, of course, as we, but I want us to, and it's creating those new memories too. It's like creating those new traditions again, and creating things without dad now, and all of these different things. And, of course, the first few years are going to be very, very hard. You're creating new things and new, and our bodies too. That's one thing I've learned with grief too, is our bodies still remember, and they still feel it. Like, oh, it's this time of year. Ooh, here comes the anxiety. Here comes like all of these things. And so it's like, and I can feel it. It's really weird now that you become aware of it. It's just like your body, because you're just like, I know I'm good, but my body still feels it. My body still feels like, this around this time of year. But it's, retraining it. It's retraining it. Like, we're okay. I'm safe. We're safe. We're okay. Like, I got you, and reminding yourself that, like, yeah, I have you. I'm going to take good care of you this time. Like, you can trust me, and, yeah, I was long-winded.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you for all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if someone wants to work with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Yes. So I am breathe with Miss Katie _369 on Instagram. And then I also have a website that's www.breathewithmisskatie.com. And you can find me on there too. So you can reach out to me on my website or then find me on Instagram. Those are the only two. Those are the only two things I have. So,
And we always ask our guests if they have one message to share with the world, what would that be?
ooh, one message. Trust yourself. You can do it. Period. That's it. Trust yourself. Because if you can trust yourself and you know you can do it, you can put your mind to it. Mind over matter. We are so powerful, you guys. We are so powerful. We can manifest the unimaginable. We can create the unimaginable. And it's down to not believing and not trusting in ourselves. But once you find that trust and you believe in yourself, you're unstoppable, man. You are so unstoppable.
What a great episode. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Let us know what you took from that. Leave some comments, share with a friend who also might resonate with the story. Subscribe, like, all those things so that we can spread the word about our podcast. And so all of our beautiful stories that we get to hear from our amazing guests get to be shared around the world. We appreciate you as a listener, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Deeper Awareness podcast, where the journey of self-discovery and inner growth continues to unfold. We hope this episode has ignited a spark within you and inspired you to embrace a more conscious and authentic existence by looking within. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming episodes, where we'll continue to explore the transformative power of breathwork and emotional healing. Continue the conversation and stay connected with us on Instagram. Follow @Deeper Awareness Podcast to receive daily inspiration, valuable tips, and updates on our latest episodes and offerings. We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights from today's show, so feel free to share them in the comments below or tag us in your posts. Your engagement and feedback mean the world to us as we strive to continue to create content that resonates and empowers our incredible community. Together, we can continue exploring the depths of consciousness, fostering genuine connections, and supporting each other on our transformative journeys. This episode is brought to you by You Belong Breathwork, your destination for transformative healing and self-discovery. At You Belong Breathwork, we believe in the power of breath to unlock the deepest parts of ourselves, leading to profound insights and a greater sense of connection and belonging. Whether you're seeking emotional healing, a deeper connection with yourself, or a path to authenticity, our breathwork sessions, retreats, and coaching programs are designed to guide you on this transformative journey. Our experienced facilitators are here to hold space for you as you explore the depths of your consciousness and discover the infinite potential within. Visit youbelongbreathwork.com to explore our offerings and download a free guided breathwork session. Thank you for being a part of our Deeper Awareness community. Stay connected, stay curious, and may you embrace your true essence with love and compassion. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next episode.